slept past my alarm, or I have to leave early today for a doctor's appointment. Anything about the time record goes on the work note. Anything about the job goes on the field note, which is this one. Okay?
Okay.
Equipment mechanic and operator. These two flags, basically, if you end up using assets at some point in your system, this is how you allow people to select and work on a piece of equipment. I make them an operator. Okay?
Okay.
So when we're doing that, then you have the ability to basically step in and say, okay, this guy's working on task 200 and he's using the Bobcat. If I select the equipment mechanic, when he selects his cost code and the piece of equipment, now it's assumed that he is working and or repairing that piece of equipment, and he's not tracking actual use of that equipment. And that's what separates those two. Okay?
Okay.
The employee time view that I have triggered right here, selected, okay, that is so that when an employee, I'm sure you've had it where an employee calls up and says, hey, how many hours do I have this week? I need to know if I can take off early on Friday, right? For my kid's birthday or whatever. Okay, so employee time view is actually designed in conjunction with our web applications right here on the right-hand side. I can give them time review and approval. Now, if I give them an email address in the system, they'll have the ability to go to a web page and look at all their records that are in the system, so that they can just look up at home Thursday night. They can go on the web and say, how many hours do I have so far this week? And they'll see their hours on the web clock. So rather than having to call in, they can just look them up. Okay.
Okay.
So this also allows them to view time on our touch centers. Now, you're not using those, and we haven't activated any time review and approval yet. But I always flag this one on so that if we do end up deciding to use the web down the road, everything's already set for them and ready to go.
Okay.
Okay. So we can even turn on that time review and approval and understand they're just not going to have that until we actually set up the web clock and all that, if you want to do that. Is that something that you guys were thinking you might like to do, where they can just review and sign off on their records on the web from home? Or do you want it all done on the app before they leave the office?
No, they can do it at home.
Okay.
That's
all right,
not
so
a big problem. They can't
I'll turn that on
anything.
and then we'll activate it. Nope. They can put in a note if they forgot one, and then they can sign off on it saying that time is right. That's all they get.
Okay, that works.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, the sign in after clock in we talked about. Remember that one where they sign in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Forms Express, that's a module you guys didn't purchase. That's just where we can make forms in the system. So I could feel like an injury report form or something, okay? The show approval, that obviously on the mobile device that they're clocking in and out on, when they clock out, it will show them all the records that they've entered in on that specific device. Okay? Auto lunch. Obviously, that is if we want to say, hey, we want to automatically deduct X amount of time for lunch. Okay? And then, of course, the facial confirmation if we want their pictures taken. Okay? The manager ones. Okay? I'm going to update that guy. Okay? The foreman ones. Okay? All the same pieces. I'll give them that time review. Okay? The difference with these guys, with a manager, if I have this clock in others permission right here like we have, and now I have time review and approval, they will be able to see everybody's time on the time clock on the web. Okay? So they can review any one of the employees' records that they need to review and sign off on as a manager. Okay?
Okay.
So the manager capability gives them the ability, gives them several menus on the mobile application, like the employee manager, location manager. It gives them several menus to look at addresses, edit records, change some of that stuff. Okay? Then once we've given them that manager menu, we determine what privileges or what pieces we want them to be able to do. In this case, we've got them to clock in others. So I can, as Frank, if he's working with Tom, Dick, and Harry, Frank can go onto his tablet as the foreman and say, I'm working with Tom, Dick, and Harry. Check all three of those guys and then clock in. And all three of those guys are clocked in with Frank. Okay? and or out. And that's what the clock and others capability is going to do for him. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And then obviously edit, add, delete, or allocate. These next 4 are just altering the time records on the mobile device before we submit them. We talked about that yesterday, and we decided we don't want them to do any of that function at this moment. Okay?
Okay.
And then the next 2 we have here are recover records and rapid entry. Recovered records, this is our oh shit handle on the application. Okay? So we've all been on a phone, right? You've been on a phone call and you dropped a call, right? Same kind of a thing. So if I have my guys and they're clocking time on my mobile device and I tell them to sync at the end of the day, when they're done submitting, they've got all their time, they submit their time by hitting a sync button. Okay, that sync button sends all the data here to the control center. Let's say he does that and then he does it on his way home and then right under an overpass and he loses internet signal. Well, my system already was sending the records, but suddenly the internet dropped right in the middle of sending and those records get lost, just like a dropped call. So even if I continue to send those records, I'm sending them into space. Like you're still talking to your sister, blah, 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 only suddenly you realize that the phone's dead, right? Nothing you said the last 2 minutes did she hear. Same thing. If my internet drops, nothing I'm sending over the last 2 minutes gets sent, right? So my device has said it sent it, but the control center says I didn't receive it because we lost internet signal. So my recover records option allows it, if you have that scenario where you look and say, hey, Frank, why don't I have your guys' time? He's like, I did a sync yesterday on my way home. I know I did it. I'm looking at my clock here, my app, and those records aren't on my app. They've already been sent, but you never got them. So we turn recover records on. Now he can go to his records manager menu on the mobile app and recover those records. So those ones that didn't get sent, we'll rebuild for you so that he can resend them and you don't lose time. Okay? Now, because it's a database engine, right? We're all based off of a database. Every record you put in on my mobile app gets a unique ID on the back end of that mobile device. 1234, 1237, whatever, right? So if I recover records and resubmit those records and you got some of them, okay? So let's say that Frank syncs his time, you get the records. Then Friday morning, he recovers records so that he can look to see how much time all of his guys have had that week, right? And then he syncs later that night. Well, a Tuesday record, you had to fix. You had to fix his guys' Tuesday records because they were on the wrong job. So you edited those records. Once you edit a record in the control center, I flag it with another unique ID to let me know, my system know, that that record's changed from its original state to what you've edited it to. So I give it a new ID. Now that exact same record is already on his mobile device. Okay? You've changed it, so now the ID is different. So now when he does a sync after recovering records, those two IDs don't match. So now I've duplicated that time because they no longer match because you edited it in the control center, right? So that's why we don't turn recover records on by default. We only want to use that as a safety feature, as a recovery aspect when something went wrong. Okay? Now, the rapid entry component, this is used in conjunction with like my barcodes or my RFID technology. And that is where I can basically just scan people in like groceries. I take their employee badge, I take their barcode, and I scan that into my system. Now that's their login. So now a manager can just put his phone into rapid entry mode, and as his guys walk into the building, he just scans their badges. Boop, 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 and all those people are clocked in at that moment that he scans them. And that's a method that we can actually get in like 50 people in under like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously that's for really big jobs and scenarios where you've got a really large crew that you've got to get in very quickly. Okay? And I didn't think that we had anything like that. And do you have any crews of like abnormal size?
No, not really.
Okay.
No.
So we probably won't use that one either. Okay? But that's what all of these are. So you know what they are and how they're going to interact on the mobile device. Okay?
Okay.
Real time or digital timesheet. Those are the two methods I have of tracking time. So real time is obviously if I clock in at 7:03, it's a 7:03 punch, right? Digital timesheet, however, is more like a subcontract. It's kind of like your written timesheets right now, where I just come in and say, I worked at Bob's Warehouse for 8 hours, and that's all you get. The guy worked there for 8 hours. So a lot of people use digital timesheet for like salary individuals and or like subcontractors and things like that, where they don't need to have the exact time. They just need to know that they put in their hours. Okay. So right now we've got everybody flagged to real time.
Okay.
Custom lists. Custom lists are for any time we need to ask somebody a piece of information that we're not currently collecting. Okay. So I've got their employee with their employee code. I've got their job with the job code. I've got their task with the task code. I'm breaking out the pay IDs. But let's say that I need to know whether or not this guy was a foreman, a journeyman, or a laborer today, because that changes his pay. That's when I would use a custom list. And I would create a custom list where they could select one of those 3 items. And as they're clocking in, they can say, today I'm doing a journeyman. And then you'd be able to modify that. And that's just an example. I mean, anything that you might need, we could put into a custom list. We haven't encountered one yet, so we haven't built any.
Okay.
And since we don't have any built, I don't need to turn any on for anybody. Then I have my web applications. Web applications time clock actually allows me to go onto a website and clock in and out on the web instead of a mobile app. Okay? So maybe you've got a guy, for whatever reason, cannot get to the Play Store. He can't have an iTunes account on his iPad. Okay? First off, that'd be a horrible thing to have. But some scenario like that where you could let somebody clock in on the web. Okay? A lot of people will use the time clock for office people, where it's like they're sitting at their desk on the computer all day working. So they can just go to a website and clock in when they get in, and then they can clock out when they're leaving, and then shut stuff down. They can just do it on the web rather than having to pull up their mobile phone and have them playing on their mobile phone while they're sitting at their desk. Okay? And then, of course, the time review and approval is that same website, but it allows them to actually just review the records that are already created and sign off on them. Okay? So there's 2 different components on my web app. Okay? And that's all these pieces for what happened there. Okay? Now, user accounts we'll talk about. I don't really ever use these privileges for user accounts, but as we get into talking about the users, we may, and then we'll come back to that. These next one, group restrictions and custom list restrictions. My group restrictions work on all my restrictions in the system. The restrictions, the way that they work in my system is they can only see what is on the right-hand side. If there's nothing on the right-hand side, they see everything on the left. Okay? And that'll make more sense as we go through, because you can see I have these 2 right here, employee tasks and employee clocks. That means I could say this employee, the only thing he can do is the rubber and rubber TPO. And then I can set that data over here to the right-hand side, and that's all he'd see. So you will see all of these different restrictions come through all of our training stuff that we're recovering today in all of these pieces, okay? And that's where you can make groups to do that. Now, I don't see a large list of stuff here, so we may not need these, okay? And I typically handle all my group restrictions through my clock manager right here. And that's where I say this device can only be used on jobs 1 through 50, for example. So where we've got, 200 jobs in there, we know that only some of them are active, right? Other ones are closed right now. So we could set restrictions to say you can only see these jobs until you can get them closed in Foundation.
Okay.
And that would reduce their list of jobs to make it easier to find the job they're working on. Okay? So this will start to make a little bit more sense as we go through these other components. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions here on the privileges, though?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. We'll save those down. Okay. The company manager. This is the one that we went through yesterday, where we start setting up all the different components and all the different pieces, right? Okay. So did we have any questions or anything here? Because I know you talked about that clock out disclaimer. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any additional thoughts on it?
No, I didn't do anything about it.
Okay. So I'm going to leave that one alone because I don't think we had any questions there.
Nope.
The next one is our Qualifications Manager. Our Qualifications Manager, this allows us to basically create a qualification. So I can come up and say, I'm going to create a new qualification that my people have. And this is going to be my OSHA 30, okay? 30-hour certificate for OSHA safety requirements. Okay, or whatever. You can make it whatever. And it's like, is this something that I require my employees to have, right? And I can check that. Then I save that down, and there it is. Okay? And it creates that. So this gives you a menu of all the different qualifications you guys have as a company and whether or not your people are required to have them. Now, this is reference only. Okay, I don't prevent them from clocking in. So you might have a job that says you have to have an OSHA 30 to work on this job. Just because I have not assigned that OSHA 30 to that employee, okay, doesn't mean that I'm going to prevent him from clocking in. This is just for information for you guys to look at to determine what you need and what you've got. Okay, it doesn't prevent anybody from clocking in or anything like that. Okay, you have the certificate. You decide, oh, I don't need it required anymore. I can edit that. I can take that kind of stuff off here, or I could just say I'm done with this, and I can delete that qualification completely. Okay.
Okay.
So the goal is basically you put in qualifications that you want that you guys have here, and then you assign them to employees in the Employee Manager. Okay. So I create them and then assign them. Any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Employee Manager. Now we've played a little bit here, and look at that. You've got all these guys in here and everything. Beautiful. Pulled in your people.
Yep.
I like it, Cheryl. Okay. All right, so we're going to stop at the start at the very top here, right up here in my search filter. Okay. So right here, I can just start typing stuff that I want. So if I'm looking for Mark, for example, right, I can just start typing Mark, and there he comes up. Okay.
Okay.
Or I could do it by last name. I am looking for Adam Frey, so I can type in Frey. Okay. I could even type in their employee code. I'm looking for 5009. Okay. So basically, whatever you type in here is going to find that information along this list and then display only what matches.
Okay.
Okay. You can also, right here, if you click this, you can actually trigger exactly how you want that search to occur. So I can say, I want it to be case sensitive, right? Because all of you guys are capital letters, right? Maybe I want to match it from the start instead of anywhere in the system. I want you to just match from the start. Okay. So if I typed in whatever here, Mark, as I type in Mark and it would pull up Mark, but if I had another person named Markson or something, then it would pull up that last name too, and I'd see both of them because it's matching anywhere within the name or the criteria. Okay. But if you need to change it, you just simply click the little button here and change it. This is a refresh from the database. So if you've had your control center open for a short period of time and you want to make sure that everything is fresh and new from your database, and you saw me hitting that button when I was running your tasks in to make sure we were getting tasks, right? So this is going to be a refresh icon. Anytime you need to see updated information from the database, you just hit this refresh icon, and then it will refresh that page of data for you. Okay, and you'll see that throughout my system.
Okay.
You'll also see my lock throughout the system. Okay, so anytime you can see, I can come down here, and I'm on Kyle. So I come to Kyle, and I need to change his address to something. Well, I can't actually click in here because this is locked in the database. So I have to make it available for edit by clicking my lock button. Now what that does, that unlocks my record. So now you can see I can type in and do whatever I need here to edit stuff. Okay? Because I've sent the lock command to the database, so nobody else can open this record right now if somebody else was in the control center. Now, obviously, this kind of stuff you'd want to just simply update from your interface. You wouldn't want to go through and start changing addresses and everything here. Okay? That's going to come through the interface. But anytime you might want to change like their privileges or restrictions or their qualifications, anything you want to edit, you just make that available for edit. Okay?
Okay.
I've got a flag here, so right now I'm showing only your active employees. So if I terminate somebody, like if I come over and I say, hey, Ryan, you're no longer an employee. You didn't bring me my whiskey today. I can uncheck that active employee, update, save, and close, and what will happen is that'll move that guy over to my not active side, and he'll be listed here now. Okay? So you can determine, or you can look at everybody, obviously active and inactive at the same time. But normally, most people just sit and look at their active people. Those are the people that are active in the system, that can track time, and that are using this system for your company. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions there?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So coming down here, okay, this is where the first piece here is in this middle. That's where all of our group privilege and restrictions come into play, right across the top here, okay? So here's the group privilege set that tells me how he's going to use that app, right?
Okay.
So, again, I'd make it available for edit. And Josu here, is he a field or foreman?
Foreman.
He's a foreman. So I just flag him to foreman. You'll now notice that once I flag him to foreman, I immediately unlock that record again. I seal it up, and his privileges are now automatically set to exactly what we'd set for foreman. Okay. So this group privilege set controls my privileges tab right here. This group restriction set, the second one, actually controls one of these here, the clocks or the tasks. Okay, is what happens right here in the group restriction set. And then the custom list restriction, if we had custom list turned on, they would be listed right here.
Okay.
But that's what these two control, is all of my restrictions tab. Okay, because those all work off of restrictions. My tabs below, general information, obviously that's right here. Okay, your name, number, address, all that fun stuff is right here. Your hire information. We don't pull this in from your accounting, but you can set some of this if you needed to have a reference for any of this information. You could populate it here manually in the system. Just like emergency info. You can have emergency contact and such like this. Now, some of these fields, if you have them existing in your accounting, we could absolutely pull them over for you. Okay? Most people don't worry about the contact information here, though. They'll just do that from the office based off of, HR, whatever. Okay?
Right. Okay.
The next one is our authentication tab. Authentication, this is basically all the passwords that this employee has for the various parts of the system. Okay? So you can see, here's his PIN number, and there's his password for the web clock if we use it. Now, in order for him to use the web clock, right, that time review and approval, they need to have an email address in here. Okay?
Okay.
So you can put their email address in there, or I can actually set up, put some preferences in place, and pull that from your accounting if you've got their email addresses in your accounting system. We can set to pull those in if we need to. Okay?
Okay.
You'll see right here below, I've got the barcode number and RFID number. Now, the barcode number, I can type in, and my system can build these barcodes for you. Okay? So you can type in whatever number, or you could put in that 5077 right here, and then I can print out a barcode for you to use for that employee, and then you can put it on his badge or his hard hat or, whatever you guys need as far as where that needs to be. And then you scan the barcode instead of putting in that 4-digit PIN right here on the app. Okay? And then RFID, that's near field communication. Is that have you ever used Android Pay or Apple Pay or Samsung Pay where you just pay with your phone?
Nope.
Okay. That same technology is what we're talking about right here, is RFID. Okay?
Okay.
So this is basically a radio frequency identifier is what this stands for. Okay? And so you have the ability with mobile devices, and only on Android, iOS devices do not allow third parties to connect to their NFC technology, which is what reads the RFID badges. So understand, if you do use RFID, it can only be done on Android systems because Apple does not allow that.
Okay.
And then the last one is fingerprint registration. If you were using computers, laptops, or full Windows tablets, and you wanted to use our biometrics where they could fingerprint in and out instead of doing a password or a barcode or RFID, for example, then you could register fingerprints and whatnot, and you could register them with your system, and then they would just fingerprint in as opposed to using a PIN or one of these other methods.
Okay. Yep.
All right, privileges, we've gone over this. Again, this is where you'd look at every individual, what privileges they have, and that is going to be set by this group privilege set right here in the middle. If you wanted to override it, of course, you could edit and say, hey, this foreman, I know he's a foreman, but I need him, you know, I need Josu here to be able to edit times. I could then update and save him, and he would have the edit times capability, even though he is a foreman. I can still manually adjust what permissions I want them to have or what privileges they've got. Okay?
All right.
Here's the qualifications. So once I've entered a qualification for my company in my Qualifications Manager up here, this is where I would assign it. So I would hit Assign Qualifications and then just move OSHA 30 to the right-hand side.
Okay.
Okay. And however many qualifications I've got listed in my company, I can select and move over to that side. I just highlight, press the green arrow to move it over, and then they're loaded in that system. Once I've loaded the qualifications, I have the ability to import their certificate.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that you can view that certificate here. Primarily what we're going to see happen here is this is mostly for smaller companies that don't really have like an HR department where they keep a lot of files and such. So we've given them a few options where, like I said, that higher information here, the qualifications, compliance information, and even write-ups, okay, and even write-ups here. All of these are just kind of HR components that we've added to the time system to allow smaller companies that don't have a lot of that diversity within their, you know, the company for all those different departments. They can contain a lot of those pieces right here in our system and have them viewable, okay? And that's what those three are for. Qualifications, compliance, and write-ups are just for you guys' reference to keep data on your employees within our system here. It's only viewable for review and whatnot here in the control center. None of it controls functionality of the system.
Okay.
Okay. Our restrictions, however, do. So as we start talking about restrictions, again, they're only going to see what is on the right-hand side. If there's nothing on the right, they see everything in the left. The most common one used here is going to be your web clock employees if you're using the web clock and or tasks. So a web clock employee group, so if I went back here to Josu here, right, my web clock employees. Now remember, his privileges, he has the ability to clock in others and time review and approval on the web. So if I give these restrictions, web clock employees, whoever I move over to the right-hand side is who this foreman can see on the web. So if I know that, hey, this foreman should only see time for these top few people, I can move those people to the right-hand side. And now, when Josu clocks into the web to review time, he only sees those people that are on the right-hand side. Again, if I leave it empty and there's no one on the right, then he sees everyone on the left. So if he can see everybody's time and he might need to sign off on anybody's time because maybe they worked for him for a little bit that day or that week, then we would just leave it like this so that he can go into the web clock and he can see everybody's time. He doesn't need to have just certain people. But maybe you've got that foreman who only works with 5 people. Now I can move just those 5 people over to the right-hand side, and when he goes to the web, he only sees those 5 people. He doesn't see everybody else's time. Okay? And that's how you control it. Same thing with tasks. Now, again, typically your tasks, your
I'm
clocks,
sorry, can you hold on for a minute?
Sure can.
Your point where we went down, where Rich went and checked 2 times. Where are those sheets?
If they're not in there, did you look in the file?
What
in the job sheet file.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So most of these restrictions, we will actually handle in the Clock Manager. And we'll come to that training, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. Because I have several restrictions throughout the system where I can restrict things on the employee, the location, the clock, or task. And so if you use too many restrictions, you can literally prevent yourself from being able to clock in. Okay?
Okay.
And so, for example, we might have Joshua and say the only thing that he does is waterproofing and metal. Okay, 100, 500. Well,
Okay.
I then have restrictions on my location that says when somebody clocks into Bob's warehouse, the only thing they can do there is shingles and rubber, 200 and 300. Well, this employee only has 100, 500, which means if he goes to work at Bob's warehouse, he can't work there.
Okay.
Because he can only do waterproofing and metal. But the only jobs available at Bob's warehouse are rubber and shingles. And he can't do either one, so he's at the wrong place. Okay?
Okay.
Or we've just put restrictions in place that aren't really what he needs, and we've prevented him from clocking in. So that's why I try and run all of my restrictions through one manager, so they're very easy to see, easy to control, and I'm not overlapping anything and creating problems where I can't clock in. Okay?
Okay.
Payroll items. Now, we know that we only have one pay group, and we'll be reviewing those in a little bit. We only have one pay group, but this is where you can override that company setting. You remember, we created that one company pay group where we had the overtime rules, the shift rules, everything, how we want their time to run for the company, and we set that in the company manager. That means every single one of these employees getting paid according to that one company manager setting. Now, let's assume for a moment that Josu is, or I'm going to just use Jacob here because that name's too hard to pronounce. So, Jacob here. So, we say that Jacob suddenly, he joins a union. And now he has to get paid differently because he's a union guy now, right? I would then create a pay group specific to how Jacob needed to be paid, and then I would just put him on that pay group. And that would override the company setting. So now he gets paid according to this pay group as opposed to the company pay group. And that's how we can override people to do that. Okay? You can see we can also make them exempt, i.e. a salary person, right? So I can make it so that he never gets overtime. He's exempt from holiday, sick, vacation, it's all just regular time to him because he's exempt. Or I can turn on holiday pay if I'm using a holiday pay out of the system. And we talked about that earlier, and we'll get into more detail, hopefully today or our next session about it.
Okay.
But if I want to like put Christmas into my holiday manager and just automatically create vacation records or holiday records for my crew, I can use my holiday manager, and when I create those holidays out of my holiday manager, it only creates time records for people who have holiday pay checked. So if this guy qualifies for holiday pay, for example, we can just check that to holiday pay, and now he would get that pay when that's created. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Write-ups, that's just like, again, if we're available for edit, we can create a new write-up, and I can give them either a merit, good news, or a demerit, bad news. And then I just say, when am I doing it, who's doing it, and then what the note is that it's about. What's the write-up? Hey, forgot to bring me my whiskey today. Right? Yeah. And then it's just reference only here. My user defined.
Now, and he's the only employee that can see that write-up, right?
Only the people in the control center see it.
Oh, okay.
So that employee can't even come in and see that if you don't give him access. Only the people that have access to come in here and review it can.
Okay.
And that's going to be based off of our users right down here in the bottom right. Right now we're in as the administrator. We've not gone through creating new users yet. We'll be doing that down the road as we go through training though. Okay.
Okay.
My user defined fields. Okay. Obviously, well, these are custom fields for you to use. So if there is something, for some reason, that we need to either pull in from accounting or send back to accounting that, again, we haven't accounted for through custom lists or other pieces, we can use any one of these user-defined fields to handle that custom piece of information that we might need. Okay? Again, we have not encountered anything yet that requires this, but here they are if we find something down the road that we need. We can use these for anything we want.
Okay.
And then Payroll Express Live, the last tab here, is the one that we use, obviously, to pull in employees, which you did such a good job of already. Okay?
Yep.
And that is my employee manager. Questions, comments, concerns?
I don't think so.
Okay. This is where you'll be doing your homework tonight. Okay, because your homework is you go through all of these employees and put them on either the foreman or field employee privilege set for every employee.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right. That's the employee manager. Now we're going to jump into location manager. Location manager, obviously, this is where all of your jobs, your locations are. Okay? And I'm just going to scroll down to a bunch of the 18s here because I know those are the ones that we're going to need.
Yeah.
Okay. So right here on the main location, obviously your locations are right here, and all of that information for them is right here. You'll notice that we do not have addresses pulling in from your locations. Okay.
Yeah,
so
they're probably not in there.
need. Yeah. So you're probably, if you want to use the geofencing or the GPS out of my system, I need to have addresses. So you simply put those addresses into Foundation, okay? And typically you want to put the physical address of that location, not the billing address. You want the physical because that's where we're putting a geofence around, right? I don't need to put a geofence around their main office in California because that's not where I'm working. I need the address of where they're working, you know, three blocks from here. That's what I need. Okay?
Okay.
Once you have that address, and that does require city, state, and zip code, it gives you the ability to do this. You see this WOEID right here? That is my Where on Earth ID. That is what gives me the weather, okay? Because weather systems use a slightly different than the zip code. That's all for mapping. But all of our weather systems use this Where on Earth ID. So once you get addresses in here, and I don't know if we even got it. There's one right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So once I've got one here, I can come in here and I can say, hey, get my Where on Earth ID. Now it's going to pull that ID so I can pull weather, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that address, that address isn't right though.
Oh.
I'm not sure what it's pulling there.
Okay. Well, it's fine. Yeah. I don't know. This is just the address that it is in there. And I can look to see what columns we're pulling it from if we need to review that stuff.
Yeah, we might need to, because that's, I think what it is, it's the address of Dual Temp, which is who we did the curbs for.
Okay. This is where that location is. And I can scroll in with my map here to get close.
Yeah,
and that's where we have that address at.
Okay.
Okay. That's where that address sends me. Okay. So if it's a wrong address, again, garbage in, garbage out. So you'll want to go into Foundation, check your jobs, make sure that only the address is the physical location for each of these jobs is the address that we're putting in there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You'll also notice I have a pay group here. This pay group is so I can override that company manager again. So we could say that, hey, maybe this job is a prevailing wage or a certified job, right? It's a city job. And so we have to pay higher rates and all that kind of craziness. So I could create a pay group with all the different, you know, overtime pay codes, the overtime rules, etc. And I can assign it to this location. Now, anybody that works at this location gets adjusted according to that pay group because it will override the company manager. It will not, however, override the employee manager. Okay? So the employee will override that one.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Then the map, obviously, that's going to show you where things are. So if it's the wrong place, you can adjust that location by overriding that location. So maybe we have the location in here. It's like, that's the right address, Gare, but the map is off. It's actually supposed to be this corner building. So what you can do is you can go onto Google Maps, put a little pinpoint right here on your Google Maps, and it will give you the latitude and longitude. Then you come in here, make it available for edit, and put in the new latitude and longitude, and it will override the address and move that to right here.
Okay.
You can also override that geofence. Remember, like maybe we say, okay, Gare, it's actually this building right here. And I need, my guys can't park but right here because all of this is dug up because they're building it. So I have to park out here. Okay, so we make this geofence a little bit larger. We make it a mile so that we've got plenty of space for them to park here and still go to the building that we need. And this will override the company settings again in the company manager for this one location. Okay? And that's how you can override here. Restrictions. Okay, so now we come to the same restrictions tab, okay? So, again, I've got the clock restrictions, task restrictions, etc. Okay, the one to be aware of here is my employees. The employee restrictions here, kind of, we wrote everything in English, so it makes sense that we have an exception to every rule, right? Yeah, we might as well. Make it difficult for you. So here, employees, they work slightly differently. The way this works is only the employees on the right can see this job. If they're not on the right, then everyone on the left, okay? So if I move Stephen over to the right here, Stephen is now the only person that can clock into this job. Okay? And then the task restrictions allow us to do budgets, okay? And that's this one. You can see I have no budgets here. But if I come over here and say, hey, we've budgeted to do waterproofing and shingles at this location, right? Let me get that name there. Okay, at dual temp, you know, the genus temp, we're only doing waterproofing and shingles, and I set that data. Okay, once I set that data, you now see I can come in and I have budgets and say, yeah, our budget accounts for 100 hours to do waterproofing at that location. And now I can start tracking how many hours we've done at that location, and then I'll show you how many hours you have left. And I know you're not doing budgets right now, but that's how they work if we do that, okay? I'm going to clear those. Okay. And I can pull that over from Foundation as well if you put it in Foundation, or you could just say we don't do it in Foundation. It's just going to be a manual component that we do here, and then you can manually do that just like I did there. And then you can set whatever budgets you want on this page. I'm not going to, okay, because we don't need to right at the moment. But that's those tabs there. Photos. Foreman. Anybody that has that manager flag or that manager menu on your mobile application has the ability to take a location photo. So all they do is go into that manager, hit photos, they take a picture, it snaps a picture, they give it a title and a description, and when they sync it over, that shows up right here. So you might get a message that says, hey, we're starting work doing curb and gutter at this location. They snap a shot. Day 1, they call it. And you just see nothing but dirt, right? And then 2 days in, they've done all the edging and leveled it. So now they take another picture. You can see that it's leveled and ready for curbing. Then they start putting in curb and they take a picture of the curb. Then they come in the next day and say, here's the picture of our curb. We did curb, but last night the security guard didn't stop the local kids from coming around. And now I've got handprints and names and all that stuff all through the curbing. I now take another picture and send that in. You can now send that picture to your customer and say, sorry, your security guard didn't do his job. You want all the names in your curb and gutter, or would you like us to repair it? Here's the cost to repair, right? Yep. Okay, and that's where that's going to be. Weather, okay, obviously if I've got that set in there, okay, that weather, and I just, like I said, I've got that where on earth ID. Let me hit done here. I'll write it down and then come back over to my location here. Okay, I want 18-G. This guy, weather. Okay, and I pull weather a couple of times, 3 to 5 times a day, depending on the weather. We just go to weather.com. Okay, and then you can, once you've got that where on earth ID and my weather service is run, and we just set that up and the weather service hasn't run yet. Okay, it will pull down weather, and it will be historical data once it's getting it. Once the weather service runs, it'll pull, and you can look back on dates and see the weather. You also have the ability to set settings. So it'll put the weather across here, and it'll give you all of this information: temperature, wind chill, humidity, visibility, all of this information. Okay? Then you can say, hey, I need to know if I get rain or sleet or ice or snow or hail. Then it will bold that out to let you know that that weather condition, whatever you set here, is triggered. If it meets the condition you set here, it will bold it across here so you know that, hey, I want to draw your eyes to this one because it met your condition of what was going on. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
So, okay. And you can, under the settings here, okay, you can get more details when it's here. You can get the weather. You can click that button and say get more details, and it will take you to the weather.com site so that you can get all the latest and greatest details and whatnot from it. Time preferences. I know we don't have any scenarios like this, but just in case you run into one, this is if I have a job site. Like, so maybe we start working at this curbing, but the curb is inside a construction zone that's all fenced off. And security won't even let us in until 7 o'clock in the morning. So I could set that earliest in time at 7 a.m. so that I don't have guys clocking in at 6:30 that are just standing outside the fence drinking coffee, waiting for them to open the security gate, right? I put that to 7 a.m. So now when they clock in at 6:30, I move their time to 7 o'clock when they can actually start working. So if you do have scenarios like that, please just let me know. And then that's where you'd plug it all in. Okay. User defined, just like in the employee manager. Again, if we have any custom information we need, we use the user defined here in the location manager. Payroll Express Live, your system is automated. We have a service center running that will automatically pull in new jobs and cost codes for you. So don't use the Payroll Express Live here. Don't need to.
Okay.
And user defined field, list data. So if user defined, I need user defined, but I need lists that I pull out of accounting, then I can do all of that from here as well. Okay. Again, I don't foresee you using this. Very few people actually use this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's information. Again, the same search filters and everything at the top. And that is, again, active and not active. So jobs that you make inactive or put a termination, like close them, they will be pushed over to this side. And they'll be here in this side in gray instead of black to let you know that they're inactive jobs. Jobs that are in this active list show up on their mobile devices. Jobs that are in the not active list do not show up on their mobile devices to clock in because they're considered closed.
Okay.
Okay. And that's the location manager. Questions, comments, or concerns on that one?
If they're moved to non-active, if they're not closed in foundations, will it just come back and override it the next time?
Yep.
Okay, so there's no sense in moving some of these old ones over.
Nope. It's better just to move them over in foundation, and then at
get them out.
1 a.m. it will trigger and update everything what you've updated in foundation.
Okay.
Okay. And so it'll move. So once you close a job, if you go in and close out Iron Lake, for example, Service Center, when it runs at 1 a.m., it will automatically move Iron Lake to your not active side. It'll take it out of this list because it's triggered as closed. Okay?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Any other questions?
I don't believe so.
All right. All right, the next one we jump down to is our task manager. And you can see each of them is getting smaller and smaller. As we get further down the chain, there's less and less that we have to worry about.
Okay.
Okay. So your basic task information is right here. Okay. This is the code that we'd be sending back to Foundation. Right? We're not using telepunch.
Right.
Here's the name, so they know the name of it to find it. And then again, if you start using assets, this is where you turn equipment on. So if somebody was doing shingles, for example, right? And I turned equipment on and they had that equipment operator privilege, right? Now, every time somebody with the equipment operator or mechanic privilege clocked into this task code, if I have equipment turned on, it would ask them which piece of equipment they are using and or working on, depending upon their flag. Enter in units on clock. If I need to know how many units, how many shingles did this guy do? Okay, when they clock out for the day or when they're finished doing shingles, okay, if I put a check mark here, when they clock out, it's going to ask them, how many units did you do? Okay, and if you guys are saying, I need to know when you're on shingles how many squares you guys did, then this would provide you the opportunity to tell you how many squares they did. Okay? And let's say one is overtime exempt. So maybe for shingles, you guys get paid according to how many squares you did. So I might make this overtime exempt so they never get overtime or higher pay other than what I have designated. Most people use overtime exempt for like travel codes, safety meetings, things like that, where it's set that they do not have to pay overtime. Like most people's, like if they're doing travel, I don't have to pay overtime on travel. I just have to pay mileage, right? Or maybe it's a safety meeting. Well, OSHA states, well, if it's a safety meeting, you don't have to pay overtime for safety because you're training them to be safe on the job site. That's all regular time. Okay? So you just put a check mark here to make it overtime exempt, and then that cost code will no longer be triggered for overtime, ever. Okay?
Okay.
Clocks, these are restrictions. Again, that'll be handled through the clock manager. User defined, yep, I even have them here. And then Payroll Express Live, again, you're on an automated system. You won't need to use this tab. You realistically, as far as tasks go, you'll be looking at this task info tab only and adjusting what you need here. Okay. And that's all you'll be doing with tasks. Okay, again, active, not active, like usual. Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns on tasks?
Nope.
All right. Boom, got that one done. Okay, so we got all the way through the workflow. We're not using equipment, so I'm not going to worry about going asset revenue. Okay, and then the payroll settings. Just to review, again, we set a company-wide overtime rule. For any time someone gets overtime happens at over 8 hours in a day and or 40 hours in a week. And that's for everybody in the company. We will send back the standard pay rates of REG, OT, or DT for everybody in the company. Now, we have that drive time one in there, but we didn't pull over a task for driving.
Yeah.
And so we may need to adjust, and we may not use it right now. They may just write drive time, and you guys just manually plug that in. Okay?
Okay.
And that's with the work note. When we do the device training, that'll make a little more sense, and I'll walk you through where those notes are, where you can see them, etc. So you can determine whether or not we need to put a task in specifically for driving, or if you just want them to notate that they got drive time and how much, then you guys can just manually plug that in when you're putting your billing in. Okay?
Okay. All right.
All right. The shift rules, we don't have multiple shifts, and we're not doing any auto lunch features. So this is just a blank company rule that says when they work is when they work. Okay? We don't have anything set for that. And then pay groups takes all of those pieces and puts them all together, and then obviously triggers our midnight and or time rounding features, both of which we're not using at this time. Okay? That is your payroll settings that we went through. Now, were there any questions on those?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to touch on Holiday Manager real briefly here, let you think about whether or not it's something that you guys could use, and if we need to set something up for it on our next session.
Okay.
Holiday Manager. this is where I can come in and I can create a new holiday, and I could put in Christmas, right? So I could say, oh, yeah, add a valid name here. Okay, so I could put in Christmas and say, well, obviously this is going to be the date of, you know, December 25th, right? 25 to 25. My guys get paid 8 hours for the day on that day. And I can say what job I bill it to and what cost code I bill it to. Now, we don't have any holiday or vacation tasks or codes or anything in your system because that's all manual, right?
Right.
So we could create a specific job or task to put this on in your system that we needed to send to Foundation if you wanted to add these for your employees. Do you guys do paid holidays?
Yes.
Okay. So we could, and then we just look at Foundation and how you guys do your holidays in Foundation. And we could set up a job and cost code that have all the right pieces to send that data to your Foundation.
Okay.
Then we create it here, and then we'd have a holiday there. Okay, so I'd hit save. Okay, so my holiday's created in there. Oh, I didn't actually update my holiday. Sorry. So then what happened is once I put that holiday in there with the way that I want it set, the day that it is, the hours that I want, the job and cost code that it's on, when that holiday falls within your pay period, okay, so the pay period from the 22nd to the, 29th of December, okay, the 25th would fall in there. When you have those dates selected, you come and hit Create Records. You select your Christmas day here and hit Create Records. That is going to create that 8-hour record on this job and this cost code for every employee. And I'm going to come back over to our employee manager that has holiday pay selected under their payroll item tab. Okay. So if you want to mass create those records right there, we can set something like that up. The other way people do is just through Timesheet or Time Editor or Time Record, where they just manually create a record for 8 hours, and they don't worry about trying to plug it all in through the Holiday Manager and change every holiday every year. They just manually create a record for everybody and flag it to holiday, and then it's done. Okay. Okay. And that gets us through our workflow and our payroll settings. So we don't have time to jump into my other managers today, so we'll start right there on our next session. We'll go through other managers, we'll do our reports, and then we'll also jump in all the user accounts of how to do users, okay? And then if we have time left, we will go into the clock manager and do device setup. We're not going to worry about doing all the restrictions and all that kind of stuff unless we've got time for it. But that's where we'll go next, is our clock manager. Okay? All right. So with all that said, when do you have time to get together again, my dear?
All right. Let's see. What are we looking at? And probably next week, I'm guessing.
Probably. Yeah.
You know, it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are not going to be good for me. So if you have like Thursday or Friday morning.
Okay. Thursday, yes, I could do another 8 to 10 like we did today. 10 to 11, you know.
Yeah. I'm 10.
8 because you're right now I'm going to say 10, it's noon your time. So we could do 10 to noon again on Thursday the 17th. I could do that same time on Friday the 18th as well, whichever you prefer, or we could book both and just say, okay, we're going to do 2 hour on Thursday, 2 hour on Friday, and that should get us through most of our training and setup stuff, at which point you would then be playing in the system and actually start collecting data.
Okay.
You want to do that? Or do you want to just do one at a time for now?
Yeah, well, why not just do both of them?
Okay.
Keep it moving.
All right, and just 8 to 10 works on both of those for you?
Yep.
Or the 10 to noon your time?
I'm 10 to 12, yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Manager, and I'm going to flag that to you. Just plugging everything in here, Cheryl. Add you to it. We're going to do other managers. We're going to do reports. We're going to do user accounts, devices, time permitting. All right.
Okay.
Save that one. Make sure it's hitting my calendar where I need it. And you'll get that invite shortly. Yep. And then I'll create another one here as well for that next one. 3. And this is going to be remote. And this is going to be on Friday the 18th, 8 to 10. We'll just get both of these built before I let you go so I know that they're all here.
Yep.
Okay. 3 is going to be, and this could be devices if necessary. And then we're going to do main and payroll processing. And that will be time permitting. So this main one here, so our next session is going to be other managers, reports, user accounts, and device setup. The next training will be the clock manager, like a lot of the different restrictions, any device setup that we didn't get done, etc. And then we'll go through these main pieces here. The dashboard, that only takes about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, but the time editor, creator, and timesheet, this is where all the editing, this is the grand high poobah, right? This is where you're going to be spending most of your time. So we get in there's a lot of in-depth stuff here. And if we have time of just showing you how to edit and change and fix records, we'll go through the processing of actually taking open records, moving them to process, and actually getting them out for payroll. And let me see if they even built that export definition. No, they did not build any type of an export definition. So we'll have to still build that.
Okay.
And so that may, because that does take a little bit of time, and send that one as well. So you should see that invite as well. Yep, boom, got them both in there.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then, like I said, we'll build that export. And have you ever imported into Foundation before? Like any imported time at all?
Nope. Nothing.
Okay, so we're probably going to, because I do not know Foundation inside and out. I know little pieces here and there because I've worked with it now and then. But you will absolutely want to get with your Foundation rep and have them walk you through what you guys need as a company to import and how to take that imported data and run it through your payroll process. That's all going to be a Foundation aspect because I don't control any of that. Okay. All I do basically is give you the export out of my system, and you guys need to import that into Foundation. So you want to get with your Foundation guy and say, all right, this is what I'm moving to. This is what I'm going to do. I need you to show me how I do it. And they'll help you through that. If you have questions or anything like that, or you want me on that call even, just schedule a time with your rep and let me know, and then I will make sure that I schedule around or whatever, coordinate with the two of you or whatever to get a time that we can all be on the phone at the same time. And if we needed to move one of those Fridays to that, we can do that. Okay. So if they're, like I said, if they're available on that Friday appointment, just say, hey, can you be on that Friday appointment for the first 30 minutes? So that you can show me what I need to do. I can get the views that we need, the exports, etc., and then we can build everything, and then they'll know what we're doing so that even if they leave the call that first 30 minutes, we get everything built out. I can give you a sample file. Then you can get back with your rep at your convenience and confirm everything is importing and going the way that you need to. Okay. And they're welcome to do that on that Friday appointment. if that works for you and them.
Okay.
Otherwise,
right.
let me know what a schedule would work for you guys, and then I'll try and fit in to make sure I'm available to help out if you need me.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. I will leave this up for the moment. Oops. That up there. Okay. And do you have any questions for me before I let you go?
I don't think so. Not at this time.
Okay. All right. So homework, get with Foundation and find out how to do all your imports and everything. And 2, on the Employee Manager, I'm going to open that up for you, get everybody on their little group privilege set.
Okay.
Okay. And then you'll also want to make sure you've got a mobile device with you for our next meeting on Thursday, so that when we get to the clock manager, if we've got time to set up devices, you've got one of those devices handy for us to set up.
Okay.
And it can be your own personal mobile phone for right now. It's just so we walk you through the process so you know how to set up all of your crew's phones and such.
Okay. Yep.
All right. I'll leave all that up for you.
All right.
And I will hop off your machine. And
okay.
I will talk with you next week, my dear.
All right. Thank you very much.
All righty. You run into any problems, you just shoot me an email. Let me know, okay?
Okay. Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.